Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. Listen, I'm your host, Melvin Lars, and as always, as we share with you guys, we have a fantastic show. I mean, tonight we really do have a fantastic show. We have with us none other than Ms. Chantell Overton. Now, if you haven't heard that name before, get ready to do some more research once we end this broadcast. As a matter of fact, get Miss Overton to do a series with us just about the Overton family. The Overton family is just a dynamic family. There's so much rich history there. And we want you guys to be able to jump in, indulge. And as always, we always offer you the opportunity to come on, grab one of those cameras, FaceTime our guest and ask your questions, or you can place them in the box below. I'll be trying to check Periscope periodically and trying to check Facebook periodically for any questions you might have. But listen, enough from me. Tonight we have Ms. Chantell Overton. She holds 3 bachelor's degrees and 1 associate degree. Her educational background is in business and also in the medical field. She's a professional photographer, guys. Her clients include, get this, Stephen Jackson, Robert Quinn, Neo, no, you guys have heard of these gentlemen, DMX, Willie, aka P Dub, Jaquan, Chingy, say Lunatics, Nelly, and many more. She was Nelly's tour photographer for over 10 years. You know, guys, I always say that Nelly looked like Judge Mathis. And I'm going to put that out there on this show. Now, for 10 years, and the St. Louis Rams team photographer for 22 years. She became an entrepreneur at the early age of 5 years old. Most of us were still trying to learn to tie our shoes at 5 years old. And she's become an entrepreneur at that early age. She now serves as a board member and event coordinator for her historical families organization, Overton Nation. So, guys, without further ado and any wasted pontification, we introduce to you Ms. Chantell Overton. Ms. Overton, good afternoon.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was awesome.
Well, listen.
I even sound good on paper. I was
Hey,
like, wow.
you
My
are an
life,
awesome
my life
person.
is not as exciting as it sounds.
You are an awesome person. So, that brings about awesomeness. So as we jump into this show and as we talk to this very awesome, very dynamic person in the person of Miss Chantell. And guys, if you don't mind, let's just shorten it up a little bit and we'll call her Chantell if she will allow us. But the name most definitely is Chantell
Absolutely.
Overton. Now, listen, Miss Overton, as we talk about this whole process with the Overton family and the process and how things move, if you will, if you would give us a introduction into the process of the Overton family, if you can kind of maybe go back to the beginning and then bring us forward.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me first say, hi, cousin Gloria. I'm sorry, my
No,
cousin
no,
just
no,
popped
please,
in.
please.
Let me first say that it is impossible for me to give you all of my family history within this time
Yes,
that you've allowed it us. So I will try my best to give you a good overview
yes,
of the family because our family is so historical. Um, there is not one place in history, in Black history or American history, that you won't find the Overton DNA well embedded. We were just embedded in this country. So basically, starting off, I heard about my history all my life. I grew up in 2 amazing families. Since I've been an adult and can really understand the world, I've told my family I could not have chosen. I could not have went to the Creator and chosen a better family to be born in. Both sides of my family mirror each other. I mean, to the letter. So they made for sure that I had a sense of who I was. My Overton family is my father's side of my family. So I grew up going down to the South in Forest City, Arkansas. And my grandma Georgia, Grace Overton, she lived to be about, I think, 106, 108. And my aunt,
Wow.
who is a world-renowned poet, her poet name is Alima Sadiq Afsal. She would gather us up and take us down. And one of the things is that for some reason I was always drawn to history. So I would sit at their knees and listen to these stories. But the first thing I say when I come home, every time we go down south, somebody has a root story. Everybody has these root stories because that was the only thing that I could, equal it to. But what I didn't understand at the time as a child, yes, everyone in the South does have a root story because pretty much everyone in the South has come from a family that was enslaved.
Yes.
But one of the things that stood out to me that my grandmother Georgia used to say to us was, baby, don't you ever let it be falling far from you that you don't have a slave name, you have a birthright name. Now, as a kid, I didn't really understand that. But the more and more that I started understanding our history, the more and more I understood why she made for sure to make that, stand out, that that's a birthright name. That's not a slave given name. So what happened was my great uncle, Dr. James Morris Overton III, he lived with most of these individuals growing up as a young boy. He decided back in, like, I think the 70s, to when he came out of the service, is to go ahead and start, documenting and then finding documentation to support it. And then along came people that they asked for the DNA testing, and he did that, and it just snowballed from there. And what he ended up doing was tracing the family all the way back to the 1200s to our last known, well, the first known relative that we can reach, which was General Robert Overton and his mother and father. So after he did the DNA test, we even had the Y chromosome tested to find out exactly where the Y chromosome landed, and it landed in Yorkshire, England, where he was from. So from there, moving forward, I happened to, kind of stumble back into our family history when I was doing some work with Nellie. We were in Nashville, Tennessee. I go to Nashville often through travel and, of course, with football. And I always felt at home, but never really explored it. So when we got there, we were supposed to do a charity baseball game, and it rained. So the fields were rained out. So I was like, okay, I've never been able to really explore Nashville. So what I'm going to do is look up some things to see if there's any Black history, any plantations here, and, go and visit. And what happened was I called, first I looked them up. And the first thing that came up was Andrew Jackson's plantation.
Okay.
And I was like, not really, I'm not an Andrew Jackson fan. So the next thing came up said Traveler's Rest, also known as the Overton's plantation. I was like, oh, this can't be. This is impossible. So at the time, my father was already deceased because my father knew all of the family history. So the next person that I knew that may be able to give me answers, because I was curious on, is this possibly us? I called my uncle, which is Uncle James, Dr. James Morris Overton III. And as soon as I called him, I said, hey, Uncle, I'm in Nashville. He goes, oh, wow, you should go see the plantation. I'm like, are you serious?
Okay.
And I'm like, and he was like, oh, yeah, that's the one, your grandmother was talking about, and there's another one, but we haven't been able to find it. And he just started rattling off all this history. So I was like, okay, hold on. I said, let me call you back. Because it's getting kind of late here. Let me go before they close. And at the time I was dating a producer in Nashville. So I called him up. I'm like, hey, can you come get me from the hotel? I want to go see the Overton plantation. And what was funny, we had a little bit of an argument behind it. He goes, why would you want to see that? And I said, are you serious? I said, what is my last name? And he was like, oh, snap. Right. So he didn't put two and two together. He was like, oh, the high school's over there. I'm like, are you kidding me? So you knew about this? He was like, everybody who lives here knows. So we go, and I went through every emotion known to man, because the plantation was mirrored to what my grandmother had told us all of, well, at least what I heard all of my life. The magnolia trees, the long driveway. I mean, just it was as if I had been there before.
Okay.
So I walk in the gift shop, and at the time, the historian there was what was his name? Allison. Last name is Allison. Cannot think of his first name, but he's written a few books about Nashville's history. And of course, he instantly looked at me and said, "You look like an Overton." Now, because the mulatto children had by then been found, I don't know if he was referring to the mulatto children or was he referring to my Caucasian family members. But I laughed. Brian Allison, that's his name. I laughed and I said, well, it's nice to meet you. My name is Chantell Overton. He goes, no. So I showed him my license. And then he runs in the back and he goes get some more people. And they come running out and they're looking at me. And I'm like, I just kind of want to know what it's going to cost for us to, tour the property. And he was like, I can't charge you. Welcome home. This is your home.
Okay.
I instantly lost it. I was like, are you kidding me? So he was asking me different things. And of course, I gave him my uncle's name. And he was like, oh, yeah, he's on the books. And he was like, did you guys ever find out this piece of information, this information? And so as we were talking and walking up to the historical home, I was like, my grandmother said the boys were considered houseboys. Like none of the mulatto children worked in the fields or did any of the hard labor on the plantation. They worked in the home and, did more of the stuff, that's when you normally know that this must be kinship.
Yes.
Whether it's the slave owners, children, or
yes.
one of his relatives' offsprings.
Yes.
And it happened to be his nephew. Well, my branch was his nephew because there's a few branches of us. So I told him, I said, well, this happened. And she said that there was an awning. What happened? Was there, am I incorrect? And he just looked at me like he's seen a ghost. And he was like, no one would know that unless you lived in that time period, studied this, or was a family member. He said, so when we get back to the office, I'll show you a picture. So the old way that the house was is the way my grandmother explained it. And then I was like, there was this cellar that she said the boys played in, and he was like, it's around the house and I'll show it to you. So we went through all of this. And finally, I went back to my hotel room and I'm calling because, Nellie and the St. Lunatics are like brothers. So I'm calling them, telling them what had happened. And at the time, our manager, Sherry, she still manages the football, the baseball team. I called her and she was like, what? And then I called my uncle. I'm like, hey, look, when I get home, we're going to talk about this because what are you doing with this? He was like, nothing. Nobody wants to help. I'm like, okay, when I get home, we'll talk. And when I got home, I didn't know the Pandora box in a good way that I was opening.
Okay.
He started sending me stuff. And I had it come to my grandmother's house because at the time my grandmother was living, which is his sister. And she was always home because she was retired. So my grandmother was like, there's two more boxes. There's two more boxes. Boxes came for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And finally I called my uncle and I said, okay, don't send anything else. Because my uncle lives outside of the country. He's in Canada. So I was like, don't send anything else. And my front room in my condo, my entire floor was covered with documents and papers, and I was organizing. Then we ended up going to Ancestry.com and uploading the tree because he had it on somewhere else. And I was like, this is not user friendly. You can't really find people on here. And then I was like, okay, we need to create a social media platform to start finding family members, and not only to find them and reconnect them with the history, but to also give them the history. Because I was like, this is much more than even what Grandma Georgia told me. So he started all the way from the 1200s, which then basically General Robert Overton,
Mm-hmm.
we were crowned royalty based upon our military dedication to the king. So we have a crest. So if you go to our website, overtonnation.com, you'll see the crest. That is a real crest, and that's the crest that came from the 1200s. And what happened was they got into it with Cromwell and had a problem, and they cut the king's head off.
Okay.
So, of course, they went to jail.
Sounds, you know what, Chantell, sounds like I'm watching the Tudors right about now. You know, the series on, I think it's HBO or whatever, the Tudors. But please continue.
Right. So basically, they decided to destroy him and his wealth. So what he did was to get his children out of the country. And what was happening at that time, everyone was coming to the New World. So the Overtons that came over were already wealthy. They were already embedded in military and in politics. So it was natural to them. By the time we now come into Judge John Overton, Thomas Overton, and Colonel John Overton Jr., as well as Judge John Holmes Overton, who happens to be I think he's my 16th great grandfather. So they ended up pretty much buying up a ton of land from the east to the west coast. Pretty much him, Judge John Overton, Winchester, and Andrew Jackson at one time pretty much owned all of Tennessee.
Okay.
And so Judge John Overton founded Memphis, Tennessee.
Judge John Overton is the founder of Memphis, Tennessee. Okay.
And you can look that up.
No. I'm not disputing you. I'm just repeating that for our audience. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs going up and a lot of wows.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why you'll find our family surname all over Tennessee, especially in Memphis. You have Overton Park, Overton Street. Overton Street sits right next to St. Jude's.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have Overton Historical District. There's just the Overton Railroad. It's all over. There were at least 5 generations of Overton mayors. If you go to the cemetery, you'll see a very impressive headstone of John Overton III, which is Judge John Overton's grandson. He was mayor there, and this tombstone is massive, and it has a huge bust of him. So from there, you have you from the mulatto children after the war, after emancipation, you start to see the same things that were taught in the same attributes that the Overton, the Caucasian side of our family have. You start seeing them show up in the mulatto children. And that's because that's what they were taught. That's what they were always around. Because like I said, there's like several branches of us. Our family are huge. We always say we're a nation within a nation.
And speaking of that, may I just simply share that to you, as you're sharing, Chantell, some of your family members may not have been on at the time, but there are 2 more cameras, and they can feel free. You guys can feel free to take one of those cameras, and you can sit with us FaceTime. Because I see Tamika is sharing. She's saying Overton Park, Overton Strip Mall, Overton High School, etc. So we want the family.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here.
Beautiful.
Not a problem, Tamika. Thank you for joining us. Okay, Chantell, I was rude to cut you off, but I just wanted to offer the seat. Please continue.
But basically what happened is that you had these children and family members who had children with slaves. And what you see, and it's evidence and how we moved about after, emancipation, that they took care of their children, that they made for sure that they had money in land. Like my cousin Tamika, she comes down from the Emmeline branch. That was children with Emmeline and Judge
John.
with Colonel John Overton. Then my branch was with Judge John Holmes Overton. So that was what was so amazing and so loving to me with my uncle, putting this organization together, because then it brought the entire family together. Because I often tell the family, we can talk, about our family members per branch, and it's impressive, but it is something else when you tell the whole story. So
may I intervene here? Yes. That is exactly what we want to be portrayed, because this is a movie in the making, as we are aware. And as you and I talked, hi Jenny, as you and I talked earlier, is that what ultimately what happens is that no one actually tell the story and share the lineage and talk about the legacies. So it is often lost among what word am I searching for here? I'm trying to be nice when we talked about that earlier. Among intentional
absolutely
amnesia.
Systemic.
So please
Systemic.
Most certainly systemic. Please continue.
Absolutely. Because I can be real honest, and my family knows, not all of our Caucasian family is happy to see us. they tried their best, and we know there's some things that are on the forefront that, of course, if you acknowledge us, that means that we have a seat at the table.
Yes.
But that wasn't our intent. Our intent is to make for sure that our family knows their history. And then to do that, in conjunction with each other. But I mean, it's not like we needed them. We don't.
Well,
and I say that very lovingly.
As an outsider, will you allow me to say that a seat at the table, and I know you know this, but a seat at the table is not something that our less melanated Overtons can grant to you, because the right was given to you, as you talked already, through your birthright. And that's our birthright. And that is where I was going earlier when you and I were discussing, and allow me to say this to you and your family, is that when people try to marginalize the truth and will go out of their way to try to marginalize not only the truth, but the persons that are involved in the entire situation. And so I hear you very loudly. Therein lies the quagmire to any situation. And so I just want to throw that in while you were sharing, because I want you to continue, because what you are sharing with us is more than valuable. What you are sharing with us, especially people that are not from the South, those individuals that are migrated to other places, even people of color, have a tendency to try to dismiss that history from their past because they are ashamed of it. So please continue.
Absolutely. Well, let me say this. Let me put this as a footnote, and then we'll move past that. It is so funny and amazing to me. All of our very notable and more well-known family members, they claim. Yeah. They're like, well, it's kind of like the Sally Hemings, like, okay, well, maybe this person is a child, but then somebody else, fathered these other ones. Like, oh, no, you're not gonna do that. So I will go on record, and my family knows I'm not ashamed of saying it. I go to battle for this family. So there are quite a few large entities, including our Caucasian family, that could care less to have a conversation with me. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Okay. At the end of the day, hi cousin, moving on. So, but I do want to touch on some of the notable family members. We've already talked about Judge John Overton. He was best friends with Andrew Jackson, He owned pretty much all of Tennessee. He founded Memphis, Tennessee,
Okay.
as well as his brother Thomas Overton. And Thomas Overton was the right hand to Andrew Jackson. And there's a famous duel that Andrew Jackson has that Thomas fought with him in the Revolutionary War. So that was the plantation that we were seeking, and we finally found me. Funny story, me and my cousin Jared Lewis, which shout out to Jared, he's doing amazing work in Chicago, Illinois. We one reunion at about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. We was like, look, we are determined to find this other plantation. We cannot keep coming down here and not finding this. And we went out searching. We were all over Tennessee, and we finally found it. And when we got there, it was so dark. What you know, in the South, it gets really dark.
Yes.
It was so dark, and the only thing left is the family's gravesite plot. So he's walking up to it and it has a historical marker, and I'm like, I'm not going in that gravesite. But that's where Thomas Overton is laid to rest. But once I was able to find out where that plantation was, it's only 5-10 minutes away from Andrew Jackson's plantation, which is pretty much intact. And that's because he was a president. But what most people don't know, it was the Overton brothers, Thomas and Judge John Overton, that were his campaign managers and made for sure that he made the seat as president.
Wow.
And they remained friends. And a lot of family members, as well as other people, when I do public speaking, say, well, they're known racists. Well, I'm not telling you they're not racist. I'm telling you what happened. Now, that doesn't alleviate them making children with slave women, because I can't contest to that. We don't have love stories. We don't have a diary. Now, what we do have is Bibles with information in it that leads on to our history. But I don't doubt that they, had some form of racism. But at the same time, I can tell you, based on how the mulatto children were educated in the land and money that they were given, they made for sure to take care of their children. Now, I don't know if that comes from the tradition from England or if that was just something embedded in them just as a family. But, I can only tell the facts and as I have them. So you have those two brothers, and then you move to the son, Colonel John Overton Jr. Now, he was on the wrong side of history. He was a Confederate colonel. And he ended up fathering children with a slave. But he also is the one that started the Maxwell House Hotel.
Okay.
And the name came from his wife, Harriet Maxwell. He named it after her. And it's a funny story, is that in the Overton men know that most of the Overton men love to drink. So he was partaking in some drinking and kind of did a little bit overboard.
Have his libations, huh?
Yes. So he came out of the bar, the local bar, and saw a crowd of people that was yelling. And from oral history, it says that it was an auctioneer, and he thought he was bidding on a pig.
Really?
But when you hear the story from the Jack Daniels story, which I'll get to why you'll hear it from Jack Daniels. When you hear it from Jack Daniels, they say he thought he was buying a cow. Well, when he woke up the next morning and sobered up, he found out he bought some land. So he then decided to build this amazing hotel. And of course, because of his prominence in that town, as well as in the U.S., all of the dignitaries, all of the presidents and presidents to be, that's where they stayed. So if you were anybody that was somebody that came to Nashville, that's where you stayed. Matter of fact, an auction house just contacted me that they have a historical key to that hotel.
Wow.
And so we're gonna see, we're gonna talk, but I'm not for sure if we'll be able to obtain it. Okay. It has to be the right price. So anyway, from that, from family oral history, there was this guy, last name Creek, was supposedly be a distant cousin of Harriet's. And he came into town. He was a coffee peddler, and he had this special blend of coffee. So he went into business, into an agreement with Colonel, and decided, he would only sell that special blend in the hotel, because of course Colonel wanted to top everything for his guests, and because of the success of that actual coffee, it spawned the Maxwell House Coffee company.
Wow.
So he named it after the hotel in honor of that success in that partnership. Now, you guys just heard me mention Jack Daniels. The reason that there's a story opposite from oral history that we have, the cow versus the pig, it doesn't matter. He thought he was buying a farm animal, is that because they're Jack Daniels' nephew, Liam Motlow. So if you know the Jack Daniels story, his nephew took over Jack Daniels. And Liam Motlow was in almost in financial ruins. So what he did is that he commissioned a bottle and had them go get his best bottled liquor, bottled it, and sent it to Colonel John Overton in hopes that he would then summons him for a meeting. And he did. So they went into partnership in the bar that was there, and he was exclusively to sell that particular bottle in the Jack Daniels in the bar. And that's what he did. So the Overtons helped Jack Daniels basically get through prohibition and not go under financially.
So now we have the Overtons involved in the Maxwell House Coffee and Jack Daniels.
Yes.
Tell more.
That's why and this is a side note. Anyone who has recently heard of the Uncle Nearest whiskey, please go and support Mrs. Fawn Weaver. I have heard about Nearest Green all my life because of our connection to Jack Daniels. Nearest Green is the slave who taught Jack Daniels how to distill and make liquor. Not only, now they won't say it, and I just recently did the tour because I was down there for a meeting, and my new friend there is Mike, the tour guide. Is that I'm like, okay, if he showed him how to do this, and I said, I've heard this all my life, he created the recipe. And then Mike goes, yeah, that's pretty much it. So I just
did you say his name is Nearest Green?
His name is Nathan Nearest Green.
Nathan Nearest Green, the actual inventor of Jack Daniels.
Yes, that's the slave. That's the slave who taught him. And I'm so impressed with Miss Fawn Weaver. She heard of the story and basically did her research, and she got his descendants involved. She got Jack Daniels involved because her motto is we're going to tell Nearest story without damaging Jack's legacy, because Jack and Nearest were really good friends in Lynchburg, Tennessee, out of all places, Lynchburg, Tennessee. Until their death. But she's done an amazing job. You have to go if you're ever there, you have to go and see his gravesite. She erected an amazing memorial for him.
Yeah, I have to check that out. I've been to Memphis on so many occasions, have family members that live there, and Beale Street, the whole nine, and the hotels you're talking about. Yes, I will definitely check that out. But listen,
well, this one is in Lynchburg. This one is in Lynchburg, Tennessee.
Lynchburg. I got you.
In Nashville.
I want to thank Tamika for mentioning Madam C.J. Walker. I know I can't hold you all night.
Oh, yeah.
If we can steer the ship a little bit and talk a little bit about Madam C.J. Walker.
Okay. I often, and when I'm doing my talks, I often ask people, who is the first female Black millionaire? And everyone answers Madam C.J. Walker. And I said, absolutely not. And I say, I know that because the first Black female millionaire was mentored by my cousin, Anthony Overton. There is a company called, you guys see that?
The Poro Agency, Hair Salon.
Yes, we can see.
Yes. That was created and founded by a woman named Annie Malone. Anyone here in the St. Louis area knows Miss Annie Malone. There's a famous parade that is named after her, but most people only think of her because of the children's foster children home that she ended up sponsoring and helped building. But Miss Annie Malone became a millionaire because of her hair care products. And her mentor was my cousin, Anthony Overton.
Anthony Overton, okay.
Which he's the first
Annie Malone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And even in paper, as well as it was said in one of the last interviews that Madam C.J. Walker gave herself, she admitted that she had not reached millionaire status yet. And that does not mean to take anything from her.
No.
I have been in contact with her granddaughter, as well as I spent time with Annie Malone's niece. There's actually a picture of us, and I posted and I said there's actually over 110 years of history standing in this picture because of the people that we represent. But what happened was that Anthony mentored her because he started his own hair care and skincare line, and Anthony Overton was the first was the first person to make makeup for women of color to actually match their actual skin tone, because we come in all flavors and colors. So that,
of course,
that was his claim to
listen. May I be rude? And this is not self-aggrandizement, but I'm going to have to send to you and all the ladies in your family. I wrote a poem called "Hey There, Beautiful Little Brown Girl," and you have to read it. I've been told it's amazing, so I have to put that plug in. So you guys have got to get that poem. So I want all of you guys to shoot me your email so I can send that to you. But please continue, Miss Chantell.
Yes. Not only that, Antoine, which is Anthony's father, is the one who they were telling you about originally when you was contacted.
Yes.
His father and himself was one of the first Blacks to hold legislation out of emancipation.
Wow.
He held office in the House of Representatives in the state of Louisiana, and he did most of his work in Monroe, Louisiana. But that was because that was the plantation that the boys were moved to kind of shield them. It was on the McGregor property, which I can't remember the name of the college, but there's a huge college there. That college is built on our family's plantation. So it's not.
And the college is located in Monroe?
Yes.
Is it Northeast University?
I think so. I think that's it. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah. So his father was just as impressive and basically ran out of town through, the whites that were getting together and starting the Klan. And that's the bad part on the Maxwell House Hotel. That was the very first meeting of the Klan was in that hotel.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
So our family, like I said, is so embedded. And so he ran to Topeka, Kansas. He fought, and that's the thing that I often speak of, and I try to make for sure to make an impression, especially on African Americans. We speak of slavery, well, we tend to be very fearful and ashamed to speak of slavery, but we shouldn't. It is about our ancestors survive. Not only did they survive, they weren't victims. We have victimized them. They fought from day one, from the moment that they were trying to be put on the ship to the transatlantic, passage to all the way to emancipation. And it's so disheartening to me that we're okay with celebrating everyone else's heritage, everyone else's plight, but our own. So we have no problem talking about and celebrating the Holocaust, but yet our ancestors lived through the worst Holocaust known to mankind. So no, we don't need to burn down plantations. No, we don't need to burn down certain statues. Now, some statues shouldn't be public. They should be in a museum, but they should stand so that no one can say, oh, that's just, something that, is a tale. No, that was the truth that actually happened. And we need to celebrate them for what they did, because if they had not fought, if they had not broke down those barriers, if they had not cleared that pathway, then no telling where we would be today. So I tend to stand very firm-footed and proud of who I am with all of my history. And I often tell people, don't tell part of my history, tell all of my history. So you can't tell me about my kings and queens in Africa. You have to tell me that part, then tell me how they got to the transatlantic slave trade, and then tell me what the slaves did to then get to emancipation, because most people don't understand that during the Reconstruction, after emancipation, Blacks ran. African Americans ran this country for almost 10 years, which is why you then turn around and the Jim Crow laws are starting to be introduced. And then you start to see them lose their rights, because they weren't only getting and leveling the playing field for African Americans and ex-slaves, they were leveling the playing field for everyone. So you think about this country, it's only ran by the wealthy, which is only less than 3%. So that 3% of people is who have manipulated, history, and who have decided that, okay, no, you're going to be this. And if we don't tell our children exactly as it happened and how it unfolded, they're not going to recognize the new face of it, because they haven't changed anything within the last 400 years. They've just changed faces. The same game is being ran.
Wow. You know what? I am sitting here saying, what an epiphany, because allow me to say, as you share with us, I often tell people all the time, and I get these strange looks, and people even think I'm crazy. I said, you guys have it all confused. Everybody is clapping their hands and applauding Abraham Lincoln for signing a piece of legislation. I said, but what you guys are really, really sad about academically is the fact that our ancestors were able to eliminate slavery because we were underestimated as being the intelligent beings that we are.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden, they looked up and here we were, when they thought they were overly oppressing us. And people go, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, yes, I know what I'm talking about. You need to do some more reading. So it's really an epiphany to hear you share that, because it's really so rich to hear a person in the person of Chantell who is saying unequivocally that I have done my research. I looked at my family lineage from both my less melanated side as well as my melanated side, and herein lies the truth. And sadly, we don't want to deal with the truth. And even those, and mostly those that have the appearance the same as I, with being chocolate or dark or however we want to identify ourselves. So I really appreciate that. And listen, that's why I say we have to make this a series. Can we speak a little bit about Black Wall Street? Because we discuss Black Wall Street to this day. Everybody I know, every Black person I talk to, the first thing is, oh, well, they destroyed Black Wall Street and they did this and that. So will you address that a little bit, please?
Yes, and I have the T-shirt on, Tamika. Thank you for bringing that back up. One of the things that bothers me the most is that African Americans have been the economic floor of the United States since we were enslaved. And we're still the economic floor of the United States with the money that we spend into the economy. We outspend any other race in the U.S. By at least $5 to $7 per dollar. But yet those dollars are not in our communities. They do not circulate through our communities. So one of the things that one of my ancestors, which was Anthony Overton, Antoine Overton, and Henderson Overton, they did. Antoine found
my brother Anthony Overton. That would be this gentleman right here, right?
That's him. That's him.
Okay.
Yeah.
They actually, his father founded a city in Oklahoma, and it was the Dalton brothers who ran them out of that. And what they did is that it was a miniature part of Black Wall Street. So Anthony's brother and himself, Mac Overton was a Buffalo Soldier. They helped with Black Wall Street. And when they came against opposition there and moved to Kansas, where their father was, and then later on to Chicago, Illinois, they mimicked that same blueprint and started with other African Americans and started Bronzeville. And one of the things that the Overton building still stands on State Street. And Anthony.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And it still has our family name above the door and at the very top of the building.
Wow.
It is a historical building, so it has this historical plaque. Many people like to say that Anthony was the second first Black bank, but he was the second. And it's not, he was the first. And I did extensive research on that because I did a t-shirt, which is this shirt here. Let me see if I can get you guys to see it. See it?
Okay. Yes. Yes. A $5 bill.
Yes. Okay. I'm
yes. Nice.
That $5 bill as well because we have it. It's a part of our family artifacts.
Okay.
This $5 bill. You see that name?
Yes. Well, not clearly.
Okay. Let me see if I can get it.
That's it. It says
yes. Yes. Right there. Beautiful. Okay. Yes.
That's Anthony's signature.
Wow.
Anthony opened his bank and he opened his National Chartered Bank in 1921. He ended up getting his application in 1921 and it was approved. So that is the first banknote under his chartered. And that was what the banknotes looked like in the 20s. Mm-hmm. So, and we have two other bank, I think we have the $10 and the $5 one, but it looks more like our money now because those that know about money and how it changed, the bills changed as time went on. So one of the things that people don't understand is like from Black Wall Street to Bronzeville, there was this network going on. Like I said, the mentorship to Annie Malone. If you ever look her up and see her building was more impressive than her mentor's building. It's sad that it doesn't still stand today in her legacy, but it was extremely impressive. To the Negro bankers, there is a photo when I was doing all of the research to make for sure that he was the first Black National Chartered Bank that the young lady from the Treasury Department sent me. And it has all of these African Americans who were bankers at that time. See, that's the history and the visual that we don't see and that our children don't see. So we have to be able to not only know the history, but be able to go out and speak on it and to also tangibly give them this type of history, which is why my family, as all the artifacts which we have quite a bit of artifacts, we do a pop-up exhibit. So anybody that would like to know or see history up close, they can contact us and book us to come out to do that, exhibit. So that's our connection to Black Wall Street.
Wow, that's fabulous. Listen, you have been on here for a while. I want to get you to commit live that we'll make this a series and we'll come back and we will talk. Listen, we can't get it all in. It's just impossible. I mean, it's such a rich history and it's such an outstanding family and an outstanding family tradition. And please allow me to share with you that I feel obligated to expose as many people of color and our less melanated brothers as possible to real life situations, just sharing with us, just as you were sharing about your family. Hi, Reese. Just as you were sharing about your family, because as I said earlier, there's too much history that's left untold that that specifically highlights people of color. There is too much history shaded. There's too much history that has been watered down and that kind of thing. So when we have the opportunity to have guests such as yourself and your beautiful family, it always adds value to anything that is being shared, to anything that can be shared. Because, I mean, with you being a photographer for athletes and entertainers at one time, let me say to you very honestly, as a former athlete myself, people have a tendency to dismiss value, especially now we've talked about this before, value, especially when it comes to people of color. And I say the same thing about athletes. People have a tendency to think that none of us went to class, that none of us can pontificate, none of us can extrapolate,
Right.
none of us can do anything other than be a ruffian. And I tell people all the time, heck, I love being an athlete. I love the competition and the whole nine. But my mom, who I was born out of wedlock, and I tell people all the time is, hey, my mom wasn't impressed that I had an athletic talent. I had to take my butt to school, pay attention, and get up and go work. So
Absolutely.
as you share about your family, this is just so, so, so powerful.
Yes.
And I thank you and your family for being a part. And we
Thank
have
you.
to make this a series. If you noticed, I did put part 1.
I saw that. I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did put part 1.
I tell you what, Mr. Melvin, I will commit to that, but I want to leave on a note in naming a few other family
Please.
members that I didn't get to touch on.
Please.
That would be Edward Overton Doyle. He was the individual who helped start the Tuskegee Airmen program. We have Richard Overton, who just recently passed away. He was our oldest living relative, as well as the oldest living veteran. He was honored by Obama 3 times. Then you have Bishop Henry Overton. You have Bishop Greg. I've been contacted and been in contact with so many amazing people. Who was it? Mr. Chester Owens, who was a historian in Kansas City. He was the one that contacted me, and he was good friends with Alex Haley, and he had a lot of our family history because he knew our family member Bishop Greg, so he donated a lot of our family artifacts back to us. We have an amazing historian, Robert Branch. There are so many that I'm missing, and athlete wise, there is Matt Overton. Me and Matt. Now Matt is Caucasian. We have a great relationship, and we had a great rival when we would play the Colts and the Rams would play them. So we was like, and Overton can't lose. One of us got to win. And then we have our Hall of Fame family member, Thomas Hollywood Henderson. So
listen, that's one of my favorite athletes. That's one of my favorite athletes.
I'm gonna reach out to him. Cousin Gloria, I think, is on it too.
Please do. Listen, allow me to say to you as you're sharing that, because I want you to continue. A lot of times people say things to be nice, but Thomas is one of my favorite athletes. Aww. This brother was a bad man, and he didn't mind letting you know it, and he could go on the field.
We talk much stuff because he always talking about. I think some ram that just came through. I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, y'all ain't won the Super Bowl since you ran it. So, I know you're not talking stuff.
Please continue.
Then we have our amazing cousin that is also continuing the legacy, Kim Overton. She has Overton Enterprise. It is spy belt. So anybody who needs a spy belt, make for sure that you go and look that up and support Kim Overton. Vollmer Overton. I did my cousin Vollmer Overton from junior as well as senior. Senior marched with Dr. King. The list keeps going on and on.
Yes,
so I say that to say yes, I will. I'll come back on and we'll do a series. Yes, sir.
Okay, so after this show, then you and I have to connect because I have to find out when you are available, and then I'm going to make sure I schedule those so that we can get them going.
Okay, yes, sir. Because I didn't even talk about the DeWitties.
Well, hey, we'll talk about them next time. I do not want to prolong you. So it's 8:25,
Okay.
and you've been going. Wow. See, I could listen all night. I'll be honest. I can listen all night. But so listen, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Ms. Chantell Overton, Tamika Ayers. I think Cece has left us, and I'm seeing some other and Makisha. I hope I'm pronouncing those names correctly. I think Gloria. I'm seeing Rutherford. Jenny, of course, we know Jenny was on earlier. I see Maddie, and we also want to thank Evangelos and Dr. Vibe. Ladies, I tried to get Dr. Vibe to come on. Dr. Vibe is out of Toronto, Canada, and he has a show called the Dr. Vibe Show. Several things that he's an outstanding gentleman and does great work. So I was trying to get him to come on, but he's trying to be shy, and he didn't come on with us tonight. So listen,
Oh, my cousin.
Miss Chantell.
My cousin Bridges.
Yeah, he's going to be. Listen, if I can get you, please, to maybe tell our audience how they can contact you, and then I'll share some information, and we'll close this out and get ready for our next series.
Absolutely. They can always contact us through overtonnation.com, overtonnation@gmail.com. One of the committee members or the board members will be able to answer them if I don't answer them directly.
Yes.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And listen, guys, again, thank you for joining us at the Nobody Ask Me Guys show. You can contact me at www.dyingonmyfeet.com. Once you get there, you will find all of our social media outlets. I'm talking LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, the whole nine. And I also like to encourage our audience, especially for our moms and our sons. I've just finished my latest publication called Mothers and Their Smen, an introspective look at mothers rearing sons. Please get that copy. You can go to Barnes & Noble, or you can contact me. I see Dr. Vibe is coming in and joining us. So Chantell, I know you were going to share some more. If I can give Dr. Vibe a moment before we get off air, I would certainly appreciate your indulgence.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
Dr. Vibe, thanks for joining us, brother.
Thank you for allowing me in your space.
Hey, man, listen, for a brother that has as much going on as you, I would be a hater not to allow you in the space, sir.
No. There's room for everybody.
Absolutely.
Chantell,
Absolutely. We will.
Chantell,
Go ahead.
Thank you for sharing and all the wisdom. Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
To the audience, can you share with them how important knowing your history is?
You know what? When I get asked that question, the first thing I ask people, do you not have to know history to obtain your diploma? And I'm talking about your high school diploma. So that's how important history is. So if it is important for them to basically tell you that you cannot obtain your high school diploma unless you learn their distorted history, then knowing yours is just imperative.
Wow.
Other question: What do you see as the future for the family?
For our family, the main goal right now is to bring all the branches together to make for sure to plant a strong foundation that will be here for, I guess 500 plus years. And it's not just for our family, it is to be that example to other families. Because one of the problems in the African American community right now is that we're so focused on just ourselves and our immediate family, and we don't understand that that is not our nature. Our nature has always been tribal, and we have always taken care of each other. And I tell people, if you don't think that to be true, then I'm sure if Emmett Till's mother was living, she would still speak the same thing, because she once in an interview said, I used to say that was the South problem until the South sent my son home in a box. So our problem is everyone's problem, so we have to think more tribal. We have to understand how important it is to bring our children. Like, my father didn't ask me to go to reunions. I was required to go to reunions. And I often tell our family members that it's required of you to live up to this legacy, to live up to this history. One of the things that I introduced once I came onto the board was the entrepreneur program. I'm all about education, but one of the things that my family's blueprint was about is about entrepreneurship. So I don't only want you to know how to obtain a job and to obtain a degree, as I've done myself 3 times and more, to say that, oh, I know how to take a test and pass it and get a degree. I need you to learn how to create jobs so that when the world wants to shut you out, that you are still going to be able to eat. And so those are the things that we instill with the family. And the only reason I started with my family is because that's the platform that the Creator gave me. But I often tell my family, if we drop one pebble in this enormous lake, it will ripple out. And hopefully other family members do it and other families do it as well. And I've often had friends and other people call and ask me, hey, how did you do this? And I mentor them. I mean, I'm not going to be able to do it because it's a lot of work, but I can at least, put you in the right, put you on the right path.
One of the words you just mentioned in what you just shared was creation. Do you feel creativity has been lost in the African American community? And if it has been, why do you feel it's been lost?
I don't think it's been lost as much as it has been manipulated. Our creativity has been said that you're only allowed to create as long as I give you the go or the say so, but yet I'm going to capitalize off of that creation. One of the things that I mentioned is my ancestor, Anthony Overton. He was into hair care products. One of the largest industries that is growing and funded in America is hair care products. So how is it that we lost that? But I mean, and I have an answer to that. I'm just not going to elaborate right now. We can probably do that at a later date. But no, creativity has never been lost. I've been around it all my life. I'm sitting here at the table with my aunt that is a world-renowned poet, and her husband is a world-renowned jazz player. So there were times that, I would have Miles Davis and all of these jazz legends sitting in the front room where me and my cousins are upset because we can't play Atari. So we're like, oh, stupid horns, those stupid men, but we're not understanding that we're watching legends, but watching them. So that's why the visual is so important. The history is so important because it's because of my uncle and my aunt that I love spoken word, that I love jazz and so many other music. I mean, my godfather is George Clinton. So I grew up around this all of my life. So I don't think creativity has ever been lost. I just think it has been manipulated.
Okay. Well, I could go on and on, but I don't want to continue the program. You've been sharing long enough. So I'm gonna hold my peace for now.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Vibe, we are committing you to be a part of the platform doing this series, sir.
Okay.
So you'll have opportunity to ask all of the questions you want, my brother.
Well, as long as it's committed in a good way, because there's an other type of committed that I want part of.
It's always
All
good.
right.
Listen, Dr. Vibe.
All right.
Can you share with our audience how they may contact you?
Anything you want to know about myself, go to my website, drvibeshow.com. Thank you, Chantell, for sharing some legacy and some important information that not only melanated but non-melanated people need to know. And also, thank you, Melvin, for allowing me to invade your space.
Well, listen, brother, you're more than welcome. And I disagree with only one thing you said. When you use the usage of invade. Invade is an unwelcomed presence.
I'm just joking.
So your presence is always welcome, my friend. Chantell, sweetheart, it's been great. I keep saying I'm going to let you go, but you're so exciting. We just don't want to let you go, but I know we have to. So we will bid all of our audience adieu. Guys, listen, we're so happy that you've come and joined us, and we know that you have gained a wealth of information and your life will never be the same after this conversation. So again, we'd like to thank
as they use it.
as long as you're absolutely right, Dr. Vibe. So we'd like to thank each and every one of you guys for coming and joining us. And stay tuned. We will be giving you a heads up as we continue this series. Have a great night from the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. And again, get that book. Mothers and Their
Thank
Smith.
you so much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Woo. Excellent.